Beekeeping is an incredible opportunity to witness Mother Nature at work. From the flowers that bloom to the fruits and vegetables you eat, honeybees give us the opportunity to see their impact right here in our own environment. And I don't just mean Georgia, I'm talking your very own backyard. We have honeybees pollinating the garden and on flowers in our yard. Now, when you approach a hive, you always want to approach from the side or behind. The bee's entrance is at the very front right here, and this is where they fly in and out of their hive. In fact, this right here is their landing strip. Did you know a place where bees are kept is called an apiary? An apiary can consist of one hive or hundreds of hives. Fun fact, did you know that the bee's biggest predator is a bear? Yeah, so you never want to work your bees wearing black or brown. They'll treat you like you're a bear and go straight for your face. In fact, that's why you see beekeepers wearing all white for contrast. This is my hat and veil. It protects my face from getting stung. But we also want to keep the bees safe too during our hive inspections. And this is a smoker, all right? We get a lot of questions about smoking the bees. Beekeepers use smoke for the bees' own protection. It keeps the bees calm during a hive inspection, and when you puff the smoke, it actually tricks the bees into thinking there's a forest fire, so they gorge themselves on honey instead of paying attention to us. Now, the bees release a pheromone when they sense danger, and the smoke can mask that pheromone. It's true, only the female bees have stingers, and once they sting, they die. So using the smoker creates the safest conditions for both the bees and us. So this is our bottom box, also known as a deep box or brood box. The queen lives inside here, and this is where she lays all of her eggs. And then the worker bees will fill the outside cells with what's known as bee bread. And that's made of nectar, pollen, and honey. And the worker, or nurse bees, if that's their job, will feed bee bread to the larvae as it's growing. The honeybee life cycle is really neat. Worker bees will clean and prep the cell for the queen to lay. The queen is the only bee in the whole hive that can lay eggs. The queen will deposit one egg into each cell. Do you see that little rice grain right there? That's an egg. And that's the easiest way for beekeepers to know their queen is alive and well, by tracking eggs. So the egg is at this stage for only 3 days. Then it becomes larvae right here. The nurse bees feed the larvae the bee bread, and then after 5 days, they cap the cell using beeswax. That's when the bees inside will roll a cocoon around themselves. They don't move or eat for around 12 days, and then finally they emerge as an adult bee. Now, drones take a little bit longer, and queens are the fastest. In this photo, you can see our queen in the bottom left-hand corner, capped honey a little higher up, and then pollen that's stored in the lower right-hand corner. This is a neat photo of our busy bees with capped honey in the top right. Now I'm going to show you a few tools that beekeepers use during their hive inspections. This tool right here allows you to separate the frames. The bees are really good about sealing up their hive. This tool here, we scrape the extra burr comb off. And then of course, when you go to extract your honey, when it's time to harvest, use this brush to gently scrape off your bees. It's very important that bees have a water source. We have rocks stacked inside of a container that the bees perch on while they drink. Inside the honeybee hive, there are 3 types of bees. Drones are the boy bees, and they don't do a whole lot. They're a bit bigger than the worker bees. All of the rest of the bees in the hive are girls. The queen and the worker bees are all female. The queen is the biggest in the hive and looks a little bit different than every other bee. The worker bees are the smallest. You guys want to hear something funny? The girl bees kick out all the boy bees every year just before winter. The worker bees only keep necessary bees in order to sustain the cold winter based on the amount of food that they have stored. Did you know the bees have different jobs? And guess what? Their job changes throughout their lifetime based on their age. Let me introduce you to some of the jobs. Some of the worker bees tend to the queen, while nurse bees feed the larvae.
Did you know there are robber bees? Not kidding, they're called robber bees, and they'll try to steal their honey. So we have guard bees that work the entrance, and the guard bees only let the bees in who live in this hive. How do they know who lives here? We have scout bees. Scout bees fly around looking for flowers that contain nectar and pollen. Then they come back to the hive, they do a waggle dance for the other bees to communicate where the flowers are based on the angle to the sun and distance by doing their little dance. Then the foraging bees fly out and go collect.
Now the bees can fly within a 5-mile radius of their hive right here, and every time they go out, they visit up to 100 flowers. The bees use their long tongues to collect the nectar. They suck it up out of the inside of the flower, and nectar is a really sweet liquid that they bring back to their hive in what's called their honey stomach. So how do bees make honey? Well, the foraging bee flies back to the hive with the nectar and will regurgitate the nectar into another house bee's mouth. Then she goes out for more. But that house bee, hang on, bee buzzing around my head. That house bee will then regurgitate the nectar into another bee's mouth. This adds enzymes to the nectar, which will help reduce the water content. After they do that a couple times, they'll deposit it into a cell. If the water content is still too high, the bees will flap their wings to reduce the water content to a certain level. And once there's such little water left in the nectar, it's officially honey. And how do we know it's ready? Well, the bees cap the honey when it's ready, and pretty soon the entire frame will be full of capped honey. Did you know that bees make wax out of glands in their stomach? Yeah, pretty cool. Oh, and honey and nectar is a carbohydrate, and pollen is their protein. So neat. Have you ever wondered what the buzzing sound is? It's the honeybees flapping their wings really, really fast. Now, I hope you're as fascinated with the honeybees as we are. And through this learning experience, you develop a better understanding of God's marvelous creations and a greater love for nature. If there's one thing we can learn from honeybees, it's that you're never too small to do big things.